Gathered here, the mystery of the hour. Gathered here, one strong body, spirit drawn near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour. Gathered here in one strong body. Gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour. Gathered here in one strong body. Gathered here in struggle and the body. Spirit draw struggle and the power. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour. Gathered here in one strong body. Gathered here in the struggle and the body. Spirit draw struggle and the power. Spirit draw near. Spirit draw
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Claudia. So good to have you here with me.
Thank you. I like that beat. I was really rocking to that.
I know. Me too. And I was singing along. I have to say, I miss singing that song. So it's so good to be here. I hope that everyone was singing along to Gathered Here. And I am dreaming of the day when we can gather in our sanctuary and sing that in a round together. I always find that singing in a round makes me braver than I know I can be.
Amen.
Amen. Well, so I just want to take a moment to welcome all of our first timers and our long timers. And Claudia, I know that you have been both a first timer at Beacon and you are a long timer. Can you tell me, how many years have you been a Beacon member?
Well, funny you should ask. And I know in part because I know how old my children were when I came to Beacon looking for what I thought was a place for them to experience spiritual development. Little did I know that it was a place for me as well. And they were 2 and 7, and that means it was 30 years ago. Actually,
oh my gosh.
30 years ago this month, I visited when Reverend David Bumbaugh, who was, as you of course know, the long-term minister before Reverend Vanessa Southern. And the first service I went to was entitled Service is Our Prayer.
Mm.
And there were 2 things that I learned that made me stay. And one was, at no point during the service were there words that I had to say that I didn't believe in.
Mm.
That was illuminating for me. And then the second was the deep connection between faith and engagement outside the walls of the building. I didn't expect that somehow. And Service is Our Prayer really spoke to me.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny that you said that, because in March, I'm actually preaching that sermon. It's a sermon called Deeds, Not Creeds. And it's all about how we live in service to our faith, right? And we do it beyond our walls, and we do it in our lives. So, you know, everything old is new again.
Exactly.
Timeless themes. Yeah,
really.
Well, I know that you're a longtime member, but I also know that you're the chair of our social justice team. And really, service has become your prayer. And I'm wondering, what have you learned as you've journeyed as a member in service and as a leader in service?
Yeah, that's a great question. While I knew that operating from our values was powerful, I think over the last 10 years, maybe over the last 5 years in particular, I've really experienced how operating from our values, and for me in particular, the first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of all humans. Operating from those faith-based principles makes me stronger and braver and more powerful. And I think, Emilie, to embarrass you a little, I've seen that, modeled by you in your sermons, very much modeled by Reverend Robin in her sermons. And also she actually taught a seminar a few years ago that some of us took, talking about the connection between faith and social justice. And that was really powerful for me in my learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember as a young person, working at Habitat for Humanity and feeling like I had all this service that I wanted to do, but it wasn't grounded in a faith, and I was missing that. Whereas all of my colleagues, they were coming out of Christian and Jewish traditions, and they had this deep grounding that I so desired. And so that's one of the things that I feel Reverend Robin has brought in spades. It's just this great sense of how our faith is lived out in the world. So I love that seminar. Love it. I wanted to also ask you, because I know, I've been here, I'm going on my 16th year here. And one of the things that I've really seen over the course of the past 15 years is how Beacon has really developed partnerships. And I know you've been key to that.
Absolutely. Often these are partnerships with others who are motivated by their faith, but not always. That's certainly not a requirement, just is the way it is much of the time or some of the time. To me, the sort of epitome of what can happen in partnership, and I know many of you out there were there and helped to make it happen, was the glorious celebration we had when we raised our banners for Black Lives Matters. And believe it or not, that will be 5 years ago in September.
Amazing.
Unbelievable. And actually, we're thinking ahead to another celebration, but I won't say much about it. I don't know much about it yet, but anyway.
Seeds are being planted, that's for sure.
Right, seeds are being planted. But anyway, just that was, for those who weren't there, who maybe weren't part of Beacon at the time, it was glorious. We marched through Summit carrying banners, we chanted, and this was all in partnership with Fountain Baptist Church in Summit. And it would not have happened without that partnership. We had a wonderful feast, and there were 400 to 500 people who participated. So that was a real high point. And that's not the only, that was a glorious event. But more recently, our partnership has expanded beyond the walls with Neighborhood Beacon, partnering with communities and struggling restaurants and businesses in those communities, and benefiting people with food insecurity. And then Summit Warm Hearts. What a better example.
Right.
I can think of a better example of partnership.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's key. Thank you for mentioning that. And I know that Reverend Wiggins, who will be speaking before the offering, will be talking in depth, of course, about Faith in New Jersey. I just wanted to say that I feel a special connection with Faith in New Jersey for several reasons, but the one I want to mention is the way they approach working with members of the community. You might remember Charlene, their executive director, when she spoke last week, referred to the people in the community as beloveds. And I think that really says it. Just very quickly, I worked for a number of years in New York City with an organization that worked with formerly incarcerated men and women and helped them with both housing and services in the reentry process. And their motto was, "Nothing about us is for us without us." And that reminds me of Faith in New Jersey.
That's right. That's right. I mean, Faith in New Jersey is all about putting people at the center of the decisions that will impact their lives. And we'll hear more from Reverend Hayward Wiggins later in the service. But I think that that's a great way to enter into this service of remembering that we are beloved, and that we extend that sense of beloved to one another. And so I'm so glad you were here, Claudia. Thank you to everyone who is listening for listening to our conversation. And I'm going to invite everybody to just take a deep breath. Maybe put your hand on your heart and remember that you are beloved, and let us enter into this time, this sacred hour. And I hand it over to my colleague, Jamaine.
Good morning, Beacon. We gather together each week in this spiritual community because we need constant reminders of what matters most in life. We are human, and we forget. Coming together to find connection and compassion with other seekers of justice and wisdom is a risky endeavor. It's a trust fall into the arms of others, hoping for a righteous return of love and community in exchange for our daring. Thank you for taking this risk with us. Our call to worship this morning comes from the Reverend William F. Schultz, and he says, "Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let its vision change your heart. Come along, beloved, and let us worship together."
Good morning, Beacon. Today, we light this candle for our hope of life, for our love of truth, for our faith in humanity, and for the onward and upward move of our community. Amen.
For this story, we need to travel back in time. As Unitarian Universalists, it's really important to know that we have a long history of resistance and commitment to our values. A long time ago, more than 100 years ago, just after our congregation was founded, there was a minister, just like Reverend Emilie and Reverend Robin are today. His name was Frank Carlton Doane. Back then, there were no cell phones, no TVs, no PS2 or Nintendo. Can you imagine? We barely managed to heat the sanctuary with coal and fires in the chimney, but that is a tale for another day. At this time, the First World War had been underway for about 3 years. In April 1917, the United States entered into the war and began asking able-bodied men to sign up to fight. Reverend Dr. Doane spoke up. He was decidedly against it. He was a pacifist, that means a person who is rather for peace than war. He did not think war was a good solution to any problem. He refused to sign up for the war and encouraged others to also not sign up. This is when people began to take notice. On a Sunday morning in 1917, at Beacon, he spoke so strongly against the war that people started talking about it. Local newspapers began writing about his sermon. He got into a whole lot of trouble. Many of us have gotten into trouble, and we get to meet and sit with lots of people, right? Like the school principal or our teachers or maybe even a family elder. Can you think of a time when this might have been for you? Reverend Frank Doane had to sit with the mayor. Reverend Frank Doane had to sit with a Secret Service agent. Secret Service agents make sure that our country is safe from enemies. In his own home for over an hour on the Monday after he delivered his Sunday sermon. There was no internet in those days. We're not sure how the Secret Service found out so quickly about his sermon. The United States government tried to force him to take back his words, but he didn't. Reverend Dr. Doane said, "I would rather be right with Jesus Christ than wrong with Woodrow Wilson." Woodrow Wilson was the U.S. president at the time, just like Joe Biden is president today. Instead, Reverend Dr. Doane offered to stop being Beacon's minister. He knew that most of our congregation disagreed with his beliefs. Remember, our congregation had just been founded, and he didn't want to harm the congregation. But our board of trustees, a group of people who are elected by the congregation to make decisions, decided not to accept his resignation. Here's the statement written by our board at that time. read by our current board president, Madan Gaunda.
Summit, New Jersey, April 10th, 1917. The trustees of All Souls Church of Summit, New Jersey, in view of newspaper comment and various current rumors, and in justice both to their minister, Dr. Frank Carlton Doane, and to themselves, wish to put on record their admiration for his sincerity, tolerance, courage, idealism, and loyalty to the best as he sees it. While by far the larger part of his congregation is not in agreement with his views regarding peace and war, they believe in a broad tolerance of opinion and in freedom of pulpit utterance. Nothing that Dr. Doane has said is capable of interpretation as treason or disloyalty to his country. The trustees believe that there is more danger today in attempts to suppress honest opinion than there is in a frank and free expression of sincere pacifism. Let us not see the ghost of Benedict Arnold in every phrase which is not sufficiently warlike to satisfy our emotions. Let us rather respect an honest man, whether he agrees with us or not. In short, while fighting one form of tyranny, let us beware lest we build up another. The trustees have no thought of accepting Dr. Doane's offer to resign. Signed, the Board of Trustees.
And so we carry forward this legacy. We are guided by both the beliefs and the actions of that 1917 board who showed us that we need not always agree even with our minister, that sometimes we'll need to speak and to hear the truth, even if it gets us into trouble. This is our legacy which we carry forward through the ages. Here ends our time for all ages.
Each Sunday at Beacon, we invite you to light a candle of sorrow, joy, grief, and celebration. Maybe you are lighting a candle for acceptance, observation, and inner peace. Maybe you are kindling a light as a blessing for all those who suffer. You are welcome to light a candle in your home. We also hope and invite you to mention a name in the chat. As we begin the kindling of lights, we draw attention to those who have died from COVID-19. The impact within our Beacon community as well as the wider world. To date, 2,436,774 people have died in the world from COVID. We hold a moment of silence for all those lives. We also light our candle of witness for Maria Zacaratos, 58 years old, who passed away just the day before Valentine's Day in Old Bridge, New Jersey. Maria was born in New Brunswick and raised in Edison. As a therapist, she worked with foster children and couples in her practice, and she also was a caregiver for ARC of Middlesex County before she retired. She showcased her talents with drawings, oil paintings, and played the piano. She loved music, especially Greek, classical, and 60s to 80s music. She also volunteered for the local Alzheimer's Association. She is survived by Stephen, her companion of 30 years. her siblings Stella, Basil, and Theodora, her nieces and nephews. We light this candle of witness for the life of Maria Zacaratos. May this ritual of kindling light together offer us purpose in our lives. Amen.
Hello, UU family. I'm going to sing a song with you called Shine on Me. It's an amazing spiritual that anybody can sing. And in these days when the things that we're dealing with, the feeling separate and all of that, and things seem so hard, this is one of those songs that you just throw your head back, put it in your medicine kit. All you have to do is ask. And here's how it goes. Shine on me, oh shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me, oh shine on me, yes shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me. Lift me up, oh, lift me up. Let the light from the lighthouse lift me up, oh, lift me up, yes, lift me up. Let the light from the lighthouse lift me up, oh, hold me close, yes, hold me close. Let the light from the lighthouse hold me close. Yes, hold me close. Oh, hold me close. Let the light from the lighthouse, please, hold me close. Oh, shine on me, shine on me, yes, shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me, oh, shine on me, yes, shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me. All you have to do is just ask. The light is always there. Always. Always. Oh, yeah.
Today's meditation is a loving kindness meditation, particularly focused on those who raised us. We begin as we usually do, settling into our physical selves, noticing where we are in our external bodies, taking note of the position of our feet, our backs, our hands, our spine, wherever they may be, scanning them, noticing the touch of the air or any exposed parts of our skin, such as our palms or our face. Bringing our attention to our breath now, noticing the in-breath and the out-breath, the inhale and the exhale that happens automatically, it would seem, without any command from us. Inhale, the air enters the nostril, moves past the back of the throat, into the lungs, and on the out-breath, the journey is reversed. There is a slight pause between the next in-breath, in, out, pause, in, out, pause. Allowing there to arise in our mind's eye now an image of ourselves as a newborn. Perhaps we were born by C-section, perhaps not. Perhaps we were born at home or in hospital. Wherever we were, there were some hands that held us, else we would not be here today. Perhaps they were the same hands that proceeded to raise us. Perhaps they were hands that passed us on to others. Whatever the case, there was a moment, however brief, when somebody looked upon our face and was amazed at the beauty of this precious being. To all those hands that held and received and raised, whether they were the first or the second or the continuing ones, we extend wishes of loving kindness. May the people who held us and nurtured us and gazed upon us be free from pain. May they be free from suffering. May they be at peace. Some of them might have passed. Some of them might still be here. The same wishes of loving kindness can be extended, even if those people have passed from this world onto the next realm. To each one of them we give thanks and express gratitude for holding us in this life, for our safe passage, even though there might have been sharp turns and rocky boulders along the way. You are invited to return once again to your internal weather systems, taking note of any shifts that might have happened in these brief 5 minutes. And then to your external bodies, noticing once again your feet, your spine, your hands. And taking a deep breath in, you are invited to gently open your eyes.
Good day. I'm Reverend Hayward Wiggins, the board chair of Faith in New Jersey, the largest interfaith organization in the state of New Jersey. And in our society today, in our world today, there are a number of great issues that are rising. We have the twin pandemics, COVID-19, systemic racism that's running through our communities. People are dying due to racial disparities and at the hands of police and suffering in the incarceration system. We have political leaders that don't have the best interests of those that they're hurting. And so as a faith-based organization, interfaith organization, we're here trying to make sure that we can empower people to stand up for themselves. As an organization, we're called to build the power of those who are hurting, the Black, brown, immigrant, youth, and formerly incarcerated people, to help them to organize on their own to demand changes in their communities. It's not about us doing all the work. We're trying to empower them to be able to stand up for themselves. We help people develop and build deep relationships across the differences in their communities. We give them skills so that they'll learn how to talk to their own people in their communities, in their houses of worship, and to find out what is keeping them up at night, right? They're the ones who know. They know better than we do. We provide them with the skills and the processes whereby they can really assess what's going on in their towns. We teach organizing skills to them so that everyday people, every grandmother and grandfather and little girl and little boy and teenagers and others will learn how they can sit down with the folks in their community, find out where the hurt is coming from, and that they can build a power that can transform their own communities. We enjoy this work. It's a beautiful work. We will help them develop the leadership of people to build their own beloved communities for racial and economic and immigrant justice. We want to help them to be able to stand up long after we're gone, to help them to stand up on their own and not let anyone run over top of them, that they can speak truth to the powers that be in their communities, to make sure that no one is left out, that their inherent worth and their inherent dignity is not overlooked, it's not put down, it's not shut out. We are teaching them to do this work. So we thank you and we solicit your support to help us in this effort. Thank you so much, and God bless.
There's one daily ritual that my family never misses: watching Trevor Noah. We especially love his between the scenes moment where Trevor talks to the audience as his crew preps the next scene. And one between the scenes moment in particular, where Trevor Noah sings the Happy Birthday song. It wasn't a song that he had grown up singing in South Africa. Instead, his mom sang the Donald Duck Happy Birthday song. It was upbeat, lively, and brimming with celebration. It wasn't until Trevor entered school that he first heard the Happy Birthday song. He said to the audience, imagine that you're a person from another culture, non-English speaking, and you witness a group turning off the lights, gathering around a person and singing, can you hear it? To the outsider, the song doesn't sound like a birthday celebration. It sounds like a funeral dirge. How I love these perspective-changing, life-transforming moments. Something you've always done, never even really thought about before, and then wham, now you'll never hear the birthday song again. It's a moment where the world opens up and becomes filled with questions like, is what I've always known true? Is what I've always known actually working for me? What else is possible? The world opens up and new life emerges. It reminds me of a story I heard this fall. Reverend Robin and I were showing images of our proposed new sanctuary to Beacon folks when a longtime member shared their experience of the year that Beacon held our Sunday services in a gym. Our current sanctuary was being renovated, so we rented a gym on Sunday mornings for worship. We moved from 2 services to 1, and for the first time, we were all together. We moved from a 2-story pillared sanctuary to an open space, and for the first time, we could truly see and hear one another. And that mattered, because one of the first services in that open space was the Sunday after 9/11. What a difference that silly gym, that open space made in a time when we needed to see and hear one another. To Reverend Robbins and my surprise, that gym story kept being told at one Magnify event after another by one Beacon member after another, all of whom remembered experiencing worship in a gym. I realized that that experience was a perspective-changing, life-altering moment for our community. It got us out of what we had always known and made us consider what was truly important. As long-timers saw our proposed new sanctuary, it reminded them of what they had loved and experienced in that gym, an open space where they could come together. In fact, you could say that worshiping in a gym began our journey to the sanctuary we have envisioned today. Although I will say that these long-timers were glad that there wasn't a basketball hoop over the pulpit. That was a defining feature they could do without. So let me ask you, when was the last time you did something for the first time? Now that's kind of a mean question to ask right now, in that everything is different than it was a year ago, and we're experiencing the same day over and over again. But hang with me. When was the last time you did something for the first time? Doing something for the very first time helps get us unstuck. It leads us to these perspective-changing, life-altering moments. And that's why I went virtually to Richmond, Virginia this January with 2 Beacon leaders. We needed one of these moments because, let me give you a confession, Beacon often fumbles with caring for one another as a community. Now, I'll assure you that Beacon is filled with caring, loving people. Nevertheless, our caring ministry has been inconsistent, often inaccessible, and reliant on too few people. And this is not for lack of trying. The problem, it seems, has a lot more to do with our culture. Both Reverend Robin and I have served in congregations in the South, and they've got their own problems. But as a culture, they know how to both provide and receive care as a community. When my parents moved from Kentucky to Pennsylvania, they observed that both cultures were generous and kind. However, with Northeasterners, you had to get beyond that hard exterior. They didn't trust you until you had proved yourself to be trustworthy, or unless they were paying you for a service. All of which makes it difficult to establish a caring ministry. We went to Richmond in January to learn from our mentor congregation and to create that perspective-changing experience. And from the very first moment, I wasn't disappointed. The first act, it seems, toward building this culture is asking for help. And you've got to do so again and again and again. Because asking for help, our trainer said, is a sign that you believe in the power of community. You are willing not only to show your vulnerability, you are willing to entrust it to another person. My colleague, the Reverend Kim Wildchesky, a former minister of Beacon, calls it sacred dependency. It's actually what we mean when we talk about interdependence. It's what we're saying when we sing the song, I Need You to Survive. And that was the moment for me. The world shifted and the way opened. How can someone prove his or her trustworthiness if we're not willing to risk asking for that person's help? I will never forget hearing a young woman who had grown up in our community share about the moment she suddenly lost her father. Up until that day, she had taken Beacon for granted. It just was, kind of like the happy birthday song. And then everything changed. She experienced the power of community as we held her family when they could barely function. She realized that a caring community wasn't just something that is, it's something you create, often over time and through countless small acts. It's just like home insurance. You sure hope you don't lose your home in a fire, but just in case, each month you invest a little in your home insurance. Communities are our social insurance, if you will. You sure hope a pandemic won't hit, but just in case. We create caring communities by asking for help. And when someone asks, we see the request not as a sign of weakness, but as an act of faith in you, in us, and in your ability to show up for them, whether or not you've ever proved your trustworthiness before. Sacred dependency has never been more apparent or evident to me than at the end of life as a human being leaves their physical body. On Tuesday, I discovered that a woman I had worked with all year volunteers for the Chevra Kadisha, a term which means holy society. They do for a person the one act that they could not do for themselves. They journey with them from death to burial. They wash and prepare their bodies after death and then watch over them until their burial. This sacred act of dependency hit me square on the heart, if I'm honest, because out of all the terrible things that may happen in life, death is the one thing that will happen to us all. Who can we trust to accompany us through our final task on earth? We depend on one another, and that is one big ask. Friends, the truth is, we depend on others from the day we are born. We depend on one another every day of our lives, and we need one another in our dying. It is what it means to be human. So, beloved, I need your help. A caring community is not created alone. We will need one another to take a risk, to ask for help, to liberate ourselves from a culture that teaches us to trust no one, to need no one. We'll have to risk doing something for the very first time, and in so doing, marvel at how our vision of reality shifts and the way opens. So may it be. Amen.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building visions? I reach out to bridges. Will you reach out to visions? I reach out to voices. Will you reach out to visions? With friends we could make such sweetheart my visions. Friends we could make such sweetheart my visions. I reach out to bridges. Will you reach out to visions? I reach out to voices. Will you reach out to visions? I reach out to voices. Will you reach out to visions? With friends we could make such sweetheart my visions. I reach out to bridges. Will you reach out to visions? I reach out to voices. Will you reach out to visions? I friends we could make such sweetheart my visions. Friends we could make such sweet harmony.
Building bridges indeed, beloved. From the story of Reverend Doan to the songs that we have sung, the stories we've shared, the rituals, and the wise counsel in Reverend Emilie's sermon to move into a sacred dependency. We have been invited into building beloved community, reaching out, asking for help. In the words of the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker, none of us alone can save the world. But together, that is another possibility waiting. So this day, may we not keep that possibility waiting one more moment, but instead to allow beloved community to truly inhabit our hearts and minds and lead us on. So may you be blessed by the love that holds all, heals all, and yes, can liberate all. Blessed be, beloved. Amen and Ashe.